Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. And today I like to talk about the books I read in March. Yes, March. And overall, I think I read some really good books during the month of March. So the first book that I finished in March was Once Ghosted, Twice Shy by Alyssa Cole. And Alyssa Cole is a writer that I really enjoy, especially her historicals. But lately I've been getting into the her contemporaries, and this is from the Reluctant Royals. So it kind of comes after the second book in the Reluctant Royals series. And it follows Ricozzi, who was the assistant to the prince in the first book, and then Fabiola, who was the woman that she met in New York while the prince was, up to his shenanigans. So I really liked this story. I like the female-female romance. I like that it happens really quickly. It's not a full novel, it's a novella. So I thought that for this particular couple, the novella format worked really well because it was a second chance romance. Like, these people already went out, kind of fell in love, and then they fell apart. And now they're coming back together, and I liked it. There is one element in here that was a little bit for me, the immigration element at the end, which I was able to just, it didn't become a huge issue for me because, one, the story dealt with it super quickly, and I was like, well, okay, they've got access to like a kingdom, a king, and those connections, so in that sense, well, all right, I can understand why it would have happened so quickly. Plus it's a novella, and so it didn't make as big of an impact as it might have otherwise. Like, there'll be another book in my TBR today that where there was an immigration storyline where I had more of a problem with. This one, it was just kind of like roll my eyes and move on. I don't usually like novellas in series, like I usually skip them, but this one was really cute, really nice, and I liked it. So I believe I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So there we go. The next book that I picked up is from Twinkle with Love by Sandhya Menon. And I'd seen this book around for a little while. I think it was an Owl Crate, or it was in some subscription box, so for a while it seemed to be everywhere. But I picked it up an audiobook from my library, and it was just so stinking adorable. Like, it is a true YA for me. And you're following Twinkle. She's our main character, and she wants to be a filmmaker. And she's got a crush on this guy. And it turns out, and this is not spoiling anything, you find this out in the first 50 pages or so, that that guy's brother, Rishi, has a crush on her. And she doesn't know it. She's totally oblivious. And they are kind of thrown together. Rishi's finally ready to make a move. And he comes up with a project for them to work on. And it is the perfect project for her. He clearly knows her really well. And it was just really stinking adorable. It plays a little bit with the tropes of the mean girls at school versus the nerdy girls and all that, but also with the men. And Rishi's character was he's like the perfect teenage boy. And he actually reminded me a lot of my boyfriend, so I was just head over heels in love with him. And Rishi does get a little annoying towards the end of the story, but Rishi helps ground our heroine, and it was so cute. I had so much fun reading this book. On days when I was super stressed out and I was listening to this book, it helped calm me a little bit, just because of its utter cuteness. I really enjoyed it, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is a small but mighty book. It is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And this seems to have been a really huge book, both in Japan and here. And it's super short. You can sit down and read it in one sitting. which is basically what I did. I think I read the first few pages and then I just sat down and read the whole thing the next day. But it's about a woman who, like, her family has been pushing her entire life to be normal, and it ends up finding a job at a convenience store that just makes sense to her. She functions really well within the structure of the convenience store, and it allows her to manage the expectations of others for her. And I just thought this book resonated and could resonate with so many different people, because it's about that, about the expectations that other people have for you, the expectations that society puts on us, and how we manage them, and how we sometimes accommodate them, or how we fight them. It's just, and all of that in this small, tiny book, and I was just so moved by it. I really enjoyed it. So this was a 4.5 star out of 5 for me. It was just, I really enjoyed it. Yeah. The next book that I read is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I listened to this in audiobook from my library as well. And it's a book that I've been meaning to get to. What do I say about this book without spoiling all of it? It's a story of a couple. Something happens and the husband gets thrown in jail, and you're basically following this relationship for the next few years. He was wrongfully convicted. It's a black couple, so it's part of the themes are what happens to a family, not just the nuclear family, but the extended family, when a black man who's been wrongfully convicted goes to jail. And the expectations that are placed on the family members that don't go to jail by the rest of the community, but also like from the perspective of the person who's not in jail, like how do you cope with this? How do you maintain a relationship with someone who is in jail? Because that's extremely difficult. The criminal justice system does not really allow for that to happen very easily. So you're following this, and it's just a story of this couple with the themes of race and the criminal justice system, what the incarceration does to the family members, the extended family, and I really liked it. I really liked this book. What did I give it? I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I liked the couple. It's also a story that tries to, or for me, I had a very clear vision of like whose side I was on for like 3/4 of the book. And then the author threw in a wrench at the end that made me sympathize for everyone in the story. And I think it's really beautiful when an author can do that, where there's no clear bad guy, there's no clear good guy, where it's just a shitty situation and like, what do you do? So I really enjoyed it, and the audiobook is really good, by the way. I really enjoyed it in audiobook as well. The next book that I read in March was one of my favorite. Yeah, if it weren't for the next book, this would have been my favorite. But it's a 5 out of 5 star read for me. It is Trill of Like Me by Rebekah Roanhorse. And whoa, this book, I'm so glad I picked it up. I knew I was going to like it, by the way. It's like a post-apocalyptic book that uses Navajo mythology to kind of explore life on a tribal land post this apocalypse. The apocalypse, we find out little bits and pieces. It was basically an environmental apocalypse where like water's hard to come by, and basically outside of like Native American reservations, life is extremely difficult, and you end up with a large chunk of the world underwater. In comes our main character Maggie, who because of the apocalypse, or because of these natural disasters, kind of the powers within certain individuals has been triggered, and like her power is, I'm not giving anything away, this is the premise of the story, is that she can fight monsters. And so a major theme in this story is what makes a monster. What's the difference between a monster and a monster hunter? There's also the theme of trauma and how we deal with like extremely traumatic events, and then the people that are in that event or in the immediate aftermath of the event, how they affect our lives. And man, it was really, really good book. I really loved it. There's all kinds of mythology, extraterrestrial, otherworldly stuff going on. There's like a lot of the scenes too, the way Rebekah Roanhorse writes felt really cinematic to me. Like I had a very vivid picture of this world, of like the roadside bar that we go to at one point, the club that we go to at one point. Like it just felt like a very real world to me. And I really loved Maggie, the main character, who is a kick-ass woman who's got some flaws and some issues she's working through, and I just loved it. The second book in the series, this is a series I found out, is coming out in April, I believe, towards the end of April. So I am going to be in line at the bookstore to get it, because this was such a fun, great read. There's all these layers that you can dig into it, and I almost wish I had done like a dedicated video to this book so I could just like kind of talk about it with some of you who have read it, because there is a whole lot to talk about in this book, and just like layers of meaning and different themes to explore. So I'm excited to see where the rest of the series is going to go. Really, really enjoyed that one. The next book that I listened to was Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood. I listened to it in audiobook because it's narrated by Trevor Noah, and I'd also already heard from a few different people on BookTube that the audiobook was really excellent. And it is so true. And so I was interested in his story. He grew up in South Africa. And his childhood takes place during apartheid, and then he's coming of age as apartheid ends, and then so we get to see both life in South Africa during apartheid, in its transition into democracy, and most of it I think is taking place in that transition period in which, all right, we have a democracy, but we're still trying to deal with the consequences of apartheid here. And Trevor Noah just has such a beautiful narrative style. The way he tells stories is really great, and you think that maybe this book is going to be really difficult to read because apartheid's not an easy or fun topic, but he's a comedian, and the way he weaves his comedy into the narrative was just brilliant. Really, really brilliant. I fell in love with Trevor Noah listening to his story. There's a couple of like scenes in here that just like made me laugh out loud. I was sitting in my car listening to this in LA traffic, and I was just laughing. And I like at one point like felt I needed to call someone because I was like, this story is too good. This needs to be shared with a lot more people. And I don't want to give anything away because I think everybody should just go read it, go listen to it. The audiobook is fantastic. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. The next book that I finished in March was a novella, One Night More, a Hotel Arroyo novella by Sabrina Soule. So Sabrina Soule is a writer that I've been following on social media for a while, and I've been meaning to get into for a while. So this novella had gone on sale, and so I was sitting in my Kindle, and I needed something a little bit just like a warm hug. So I picked up the novella on my Kindle, and it was just so stinking cute. We're following Vanessa and Mateo, and Vanessa works at a hotel. Her dad is in charge of making decisions for like vendors to come in, and they're currently looking for like a new person to take care of like the gardening, landscaping, and she also holds a high position within the hotel. I forgot what it is, but she's at the hotel. We start off because she's celebrating. It's the night before her 30th birthday. Yes, and she's there with her boyfriend. And she has a list of like a list that she made years before about things she wanted to accomplish before she turned 30. One of them was to get engaged. Her boyfriend's sitting right in front of her at a romantic dinner at the hotel. She thinks she's gonna get a proposal, and instead a breakup happens. She gets broken up with, ends up at the hotel bar. Enter Mateo, who it turns out is there for other reasons, and meets our heroine. And one of the last things on her list to do before she's 30 is to have a one-night stand. So they end up having what they think is going to be a one-night stand, but it's a romance novel, so instead they fall in love. It was just so stinking cute, and you get to see Latino families and the importance of families for these two people. They both come from close-knit families that are really important to them, and the fact that they both understand that plays a central role in the story, and I really enjoyed it. It was stinking cute. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was exactly what I needed at the right time. It was perfection. And again, I'm not a novella person, but for someone who's not really a novella person, I really was into some of these novellas this month. All right, the next book that I read was one for my class. And it was one that I had not read before, but this is R.K. Narayan's the Ramayana, a short and modern prose version of the Indian epic. So this is like an Indian epic that's probably bigger than like any of like the Greek or the Roman epics. I'll give it 4 or 5 stars. It's a fun read. It's a little bit hard to get into at first because you're not used to the style, so you want to give yourself a little bit of time, but it does follow kind of a lot of the conventions of the epic, in that there's a hero we're following. He goes through trials and tribulations to emerge victorious and heroic at the end. So all of that's in there, but because it is a central work of Hindu religious practice, it's really cool. I think for a Western audience, it feels like something different. Like the structure is familiar, but the little stories, the little vignettes, the little moral lessons in here are different. And so I've had fun in discussing this book with my students, and they're going to be turning in papers on this fairly soon. So I'm actually excited to see what they write about it. So this turned out to be quite a fun read. All right, next book that I read was, I listened to an audiobook, and Its Roomies by Christina Lauren. Christina, this is my first Christina Lauren book. I'm about to go to an event where it's a writing duo that writes under the pen name Christina Lauren. I'm about to go to an event that they're going to be at. And so I wanted to read one of their books, and this was available through my library, so I got it. It ended up being a 3 out of 5 star read for me. I really did like the characters. You're following Holland, who lives in New York, and whose uncle, through marriage, kind of runs what does he run? Like a music conservatory, that kind of thing. And our hero is Irish and Juilliard trained, but is currently playing in like the subway, right? And in random like bands, just trying to make a living. But because she's developed a really musical ear, she kind of knows there's something special about him. Plus, she's developed a crush on him. And so one night she stops, she's a little drunk, and she tells him, that she enjoys his music, and they exchange names. stuff ensues. I really enjoyed the couple. I enjoyed the romance story. All of that was great. The thing that took away from the story for me was there's central to the romance and to the kind of things that keep the couple apart is an issue of immigration. One of them is not in the country legally. One of them overstayed a visa. The overstay has occurred for 4 years, but now they're trying to get this person residency, a green card, so that they can stay in the country. The authors they're trying not to handle it superficially, right? Like, they're not dismissive of how bad of a situation this is legally, but it's a romance, so it kind of has to treat some of it superficially, and I didn't like that, because I know people who have gone through the process of trying to get somebody in a couple legal residency in the country, and the way that this has been handled, even before the Trump administration, was especially when it's a significant overstay of a visa, is handled pretty strictly. So the people that I know, the person who was not in the country legally was deported to their country, even though they had a lawyer, even though they'd been following all the legal process, had admitted to the wrongdoing, and were just trying to ensure that they could stay together, and they were married. And it was a really shitty situation, and I just, having seen how it affects people, the story did not click. Like, that storyline did not click with me. The immigration part, I was just, no. I was just not going to be happy with it. So that's a personal issue with me. I know a lot of people aren't going to feel that way. And if that's not a big deal for me, I think this is a really enjoyable story. But just that immigration aspect was just not, it was not nice. It was not good for me. So I didn't like listening to it. So that's that. So we'll move on. The last book that I read in March is Rafe by Rebekah Weatherspoon, a buff male nanny, just in case you're wondering. So this is, if you like a single parent trope, this has in it, our heroine is a single parent, the mother of twins, and we have a male nanny who comes into the picture, and this story is just brilliant. I give it 5 out of 5 stars because it was just what I needed at the time that I picked it up. It's fun, it's cute. Our male hero he's an alpha male, but not like in what an asshole and what a jerk I am, and kind of like he's had a tough past, but he's like a gentle giant type of person, great with kids, makes a mean quiche, like just a great hero to have in the story. And our heroine is a African American doctor, and I just love that she's the smart one. She's the one that's like earning a great living, and he's also experiencing some like social pressures because he's a nanny, and friends and past romantic partners expected him to do something else, but they find each other, and they have a hot, passionate romance, and I loved it. Cannot recommend it enough. So it is an interracial couple, which I always love when I find these stories, and yeah, pick it up. Highly recommend. So that is it. Those are all the books that I read in March. Overall, it was a really good month. I mean, for me, in a month to read Trill of Like Me, Trevor Noah's memoir, and Rafe was just like fantastic, because those were all 5-star reads for me, and then the rest were also really excellent. Like, my lowest rated was a 3-star book, so that's not the worst thing in the world. So I feel like I've had a really good reading month despite a lot of stress and anxiety. So let me know how you did this month. What did you read that was really good that I should probably go out and buy and put on my TBR immediately, because I'm always looking for new ones. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.